Mr. Sandeep Pandey, I am Mumtaz Alam Flahi, correspondent to Circles.net. You have been very active for human rights movements in the country. In the last decade, there has been rise in terror attacks in the country, terror attacks and police investigations. What's your opinion about it? People say that police probes have not been very honest and fair.
अंग्रेजी में चाहिए ना?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it is quite clear from the reports in Tehelka by Ajit Sahi that not even in one case among the Muslims arrested all over the country in connection with the terrorist incidents or bomb blast incidents, they have a concrete proof against the accused. Mostly they have been arrested on some vague suspicion. And the two cases that we have looked into in UP, one that of Shehbaz Ahmed, who was arrested in the case of Jaipur bomb blast, we found that the only evidence that police was producing, that he went to Sahibabad to send an email and he was there for 3 days drafting his email, was not correct, because in those dates he was in Lucknow making phone calls from his landline phone in his office. Shehbaz was a CME member before he got married, but we found that there was no evidence that he was active with CME after his marriage. He was trying to set up a business. His bank account balances were very low, one of them was zero. And the kind of claims that the police was making were false. And in fact, I went with his father-in-law to ATS office when his father-in-law was made to sign 3 blank papers. So police have been violating all laws and procedures to take action against the accused and their families. And often they are under pressure to produce result, and therefore they just arrest anybody. Second case was that of Abu Bashar, who was arrested in the case of Gujarat bomb blast. Now his arrest was shown officially 2 days after he was picked up from his village in Azamgarh. Now why does police have to do this? He was almost kidnapped in a very strange kind of incident, and then he was shown to be a mastermind of the Gujarat incidents, Ahmedabad blast and the bombs which were found in Surat. But when, as part of PUCL, we did a study on him, one of the former police officers who was part of our team, Mr. S.M. Naseem, he commented that the general intelligence of that family is not of the level where you can describe Abu Bashar as a mastermind. He might have made some speeches which may have been against the constitution, but then that kind of thing we do all the time. We question the practices of the government of India. We practice the Land Acquisition Act and a lot of things. So except for an ideology which may not be very palatable, I don't think palatable to the Indian state, I don't think there is any concrete evidence of the involvement of these youth in any incident which can be described as violent or breaking any law. To hold a belief which is against the constitution is not illegal. It is the constitution provides you a right of speech, right of organization. I can form any organization, and so long as I am not breaking any law or engaging in violent activities, I have not committed any crime. And it is very unfortunate that these kind of things are going on. And except for the Malegaon bomb blast, in which the police has found concrete evidence, Um, but there are double standards. You don't see the kind of anger in people, and even the courts are soft on them. For example, Abu Bashar for a very long time has not been transferred from the police custody to the judicial custody. On the other hand, the courts denied the police uh, to take Sadhvi Pragya Thakur in custody for interrogation. So these kind of things are bad. They are damaging for the democratic spirit of this country.
Right. There has been a lot of allegations against the police that they have been torturing and violating the human rights of terror suspects
Yeah.
who are naturally, most of them are Muslims, 99% of are them of Muslims. But last week I attended a program, a seminar in which legal luminaries said that the voice for human rights of terror suspects should not be as high as the voice of human rights of normal criminals. How do you see it?
No. I think every accused, he may even be a Pakistani, has to be treated, according to law. And torture is definitely not justified. Fake encounters are even worse. There was an incident in UP where the incident did not take place, but the police and the military were going to encounter two Kashmiri youth, and I had come to know of it from a very reliable source. I exposed it, because of which that encounter was stayed. And I have a feeling that those two youths got killed in the recent Noida encounter, because I was told that two AK-47 were bought from Nepal, and they were going to be shown as recovery from those two youth. And the various newspaper reports in Times of India and Hindustan have raised objections on the Noida encounter. The UP police is saying that they will conduct an inquiry into it. So why is it that when police conducts an encounter, whether it is Butler House or Noida, there are demands, from sections of media, society and political parties to conduct investigation into that encounter. It shows that the encounters are not genuine, and this is a blot on democracy. Police's role is not to kill people. They can at the most arrest them and then subject them to judicial trial after interrogation. And in this process, subjecting anybody to torture is a human rights violation.
Right.
It doesn't matter whether the suspect or the accused is connected with a terrorist case or a normal crime.
Right. Sunil Pandey, after every blast in the country, scores of Muslim youths were arrested, but we saw only the rise in terror crimes.
Yeah.
What is the reason of it? How do you see it?
Well, the way the police and the state are going about tackling the issue of terrorism, it is going to worsen. The situation is going to become worse. See, these youth who may be unemployed, who may hold some kind of grievance against the state, they are part of socio-political and economic problems which the society is facing. A lot of youth, especially in Northeast, I know, are involved in insurgency incidents, because now there is an extortion racket, in place, and they have become part of it, and they don't know how to come out of it. So these problems have to be solved. Or if the Indian government claims that terrorism is being exported from Pakistan into India, then you have to see why Pakistan does it. Why doesn't Nepal do it, or why doesn't some of the other countries which are friendly with India don't do it? I think you have to solve the bilateral problems with countries which have become problematic for you, and the socio-economic, political, issues which are outstanding, so that Pakistan or any country does not have to export terrorism to India or to destabilize the peace and harmony in this country. So that kind of effort is needed. But any amount of security, any amount of arms, any amount of modern training to deal with terrorism is not going to be able to control it, because incident after incident can be quoted where any amount of security has failed. The best method to deal with this problem is to win the trust of the people, to satisfy the grievances people have, and take a political approach to it.
Right. Malegaon blast has proved that there is not only Muslim terror in
Yeah.
India but also Hindutva terror,
Mhm.
arresting and accusation against Sadhvi Pragyat Singh Thakur and
Yeah.
Colonel Purohit and Dayanand Pandey.
Yeah.
Do you think how wide the network of Hindutva terror is in India?
Oh, I think it is very wide. I think the first major terrorist incident in India was the demolition of Babri Masjid, where thousands of people here in Ayodhya came from all over the country and in broad daylight. And when the UP government was saying that it would stand by the constitution and save the mosque, they allowed it to be demolished. That was a breach of trust. That can be described as an anti-national act. But unfortunately, those people have not been punished so far. The case is still going on. That incident, and then the first bomb blast took place after the demolition of Babri Masjid in Ayodhya, in Bombay. And even after that, things hadn't gotten out of control. If the government of India had taken a stern action against the culprits of Babri Masjid demolition, things would have not worsened to this extent. But then the nuclear test in '98 and in 2001, our voluntary support to the United States in their war against terrorism kind of sealed our fate. We joined the American camp. We became a target of terrorists, and the first major terrorist incident which took place, I think, was the attack on the parliament. It took place after India joined the war against terror, which was a totally fake war. In the name of fighting war against terror, US had expansionist designs. They wanted to control the oil fields of Middle East. They wanted to extend their hegemony in different parts of the world, and there was no reason why India should have been part of that design. We had such a wonderful foreign policy of non-aligned movement, and India was seen. India was seen as a major advocate of world peace and disarmament, and from that position, in '99, when we went to the International Court of Justice and said that even the concept of deterrence is anti-human. Before that, Rajiv Gandhi had made an attempt in 1998 at the United Nations to try to convince the Security Council members to give up their nuclear weapons. Jawaharlal Nehru had rejected the American offer to explode an American bomb on Indian soil before the Chinese nuclear test. India had a wonderful history of advocating for peace and disarmament, but the nuclear test that we conducted in '98 and the desire to become a military power has changed the foreign policy of this country, has changed our fate, and now we are doomed to be a target of terrorist organizations, just like the US is a target, just like the Israel is a target. And unless we take corrective measures, we choose an independent foreign policy, and we become the voice of the poorer countries of the world, rather than seeking our ambition to join the rich club.
Right.
I think things are going to get only worse.
Last question, Sandeep Pandey. You have been holding several communal harmony programs across the country, particularly in Ayodhya.
Yeah.
First question, why in Ayodhya? And second, the local police have not been friendly to you in organizing these programs.
Yeah. Well, in 2002, when Gujarat carnage was going on, and Vishwa Hindu Parishad issued a threat that Gujarat was just a laboratory and they will convert the entire country into Gujarat, we decided to take up the challenge. We said we are not going to let UP become Gujarat, and we took out a peace march, communal harmony peace march from Chitrakoot to Ayodhya, both places associated with Lord Ram, and we said we will not let anybody destroy the communal harmony of the society. We got very good response, and since then Acharya Jugal Kishore Shastri in Ayodhya has been holding various programs under the banner of Ayodhya Ki Awaaz. And Ayodhya Ki Awaaz essentially is a voice of people of Ayodhya, which says that parties which are interested in exploiting the religious issue for political purposes should stop interfering in Ayodhya. People from outside should stop interfering in Ayodhya and let the problem of Babri Masjid and Ram Janmabhoomi be solved by local Hindus and Muslims. Now this has resonated very well with the people of Ayodhya, who have become sick of this politics, and as a matter of policy we have decided to challenge the communal forces from the place which they have used to build their entire communal politics around the country. And I am very happy that today the people of Ayodhya and the people of UP do not support the communal politics of Bharatiya Janata Party.
Thank you very much, Sandeep Pandey. Thank you very much.
Thank you.